At 78, Emmylou Harris, one of the most revered voices in American music, has finally opened up about her deep connection to the late John Denver, a man whose artistry, passion for nature, and unwavering authenticity left a mark on her life both personally and musically. For decades, Harris carried her reflections quietly, often choosing to let her music speak where words could not. But time has a way of softening silence, and now, with the wisdom of nearly 8 decades behind her, she has begun to share stories about Denver that reveal not only his greatness as an artist, but also the tenderness and humanity that defined him as a person. In many ways, her tribute is not just about remembering a friend, but also about honoring a fellow dreamer whose voice, like hers, became a timeless echo of America's spirit. Emmylou Harris was born on April 2, 1947, in Birmingham, Alabama, into a family deeply shaped by military discipline and sacrifice. Her father served as a Marine Corps officer and was even a prisoner of war in Korea, a harrowing experience that instilled resilience in the household. For young Emmylou, this environment created a foundation of strength and determination that she would later carry into her music career. Though her upbringing was modest, it was rich with values, perseverance, humility, and an appreciation for life's fleeting moments. From an early age, she displayed both academic and artistic talent, excelling in school while also developing an ear for melody and an instinct for storytelling. While she initially pursued drama at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, fate had other plans. The sounds of Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, and Pete Seeger captured her imagination, igniting a love for folk music that would forever change her course. Harris was drawn not just to the music itself, but to the honesty it demanded. Folk music was raw, unvarnished, and unafraid of truth, a quality she would later embody in her own songwriting. These early influences set the stage for a career that would intertwine with legends like John Denver, who, like her, believed that music was at its best when it was deeply human. By the late 1960s, Harris's life was a portrait of both struggle and determination. After leaving college, she moved to New York City with the hopes of carving out a path in the vibrant folk scene of Greenwich Village. It was the height of the folk revival, a cultural moment filled with promise but also fierce competition. She played in small coffee houses, often singing for little more than tips. To support herself, she worked odd jobs, balancing the dream of a career in music with the very real demands of survival. It was a period of financial instability, but also one of immense artistic growth. Harris began to understand the grit required to pursue her passion, a grit that was mirrored by many of her contemporaries, including John Denver. In 1969, she released her debut album, Gliding Bird. Though the project revealed glimpses of her talent, it was far from a commercial success. The disappointment could have easily ended her journey, but Harris refused to give up. Personal challenges also loomed large: a brief marriage, the responsibilities of raising her daughter, and the uncertainty of an unstable career. Yet these struggles only deepened her resilience. They shaped her into an artist who sang not just with technical skill, but with lived experience. This authenticity would later resonate with John Denver's own musical philosophy. Both artists believed that music was not about perfection, it was about connection. In those early years of struggle, Harris and Denver were unknowingly walking parallel paths, preparing for a moment when their voices would eventually intertwine in harmony. The turning point in Emmylou Harris's career came in the early 1970s, when she met Graham Parsons, a former member of the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers. Parsons recognized something extraordinary in her crystalline voice and invited her to sing harmony with him. Their partnership was brief but transformative, producing the albums G.P. 1973 and Grievous Angel 1974. These records became milestones in country rock, blending traditional country with the free spirit of rock. For Harris, Parsons was not just a collaborator, he was a mentor and a musical soulmate. His influence introduced her to the depth of traditional country music, expanding her artistic vision. But tragedy soon struck. In 1973, Parsons died from a drug overdose, leaving Harris devastated. This loss forced her to make a choice: retreat into grief or carry forward Parsons's vision. Harris chose the latter, channeling her heartbreak into purpose. She often spoke of Parsons as someone who gave her both a direction and a mission. This sense of carrying forward another's dream would later resonate with her reflections on John Denver. Denver, too, believed in the power of legacy, of leaving behind more than just music, but a message of love, simplicity, and respect for the earth. After Graham Parsons's death, Emmylou Harris found herself standing at a crossroads, but with renewed determination. Signing with Reprise Records, she released Pieces of the Sky in 1975, an album that introduced her unique blend of country, folk, and rock to a wide audience. Songs like If I Could Only Win Your Love showcased her ability to take a classic and make it her own, breathing fresh emotion into every note. The album's success was the beginning of a streak of critically acclaimed projects: Elite Hotel, 1975, Luxury Liner, 1977, and Quarter Moon in a 10-Cent Town, 1978. Each record expanded her influence and cemented her reputation as an artist unafraid to cross boundaries. This was also the era when her path frequently crossed with John Denver's. Denver, with his warm tenor voice and heartfelt lyrics, was himself riding a wave of fame with hits like Take Me Home, Country Roads, and Annie's Song. Both artists embodied authenticity, and both believed that country music could be expansive, inclusive, and deeply emotional. Though their styles were distinct, Harris and Denver found common ground in their shared commitment to truth in music. Harris admired Denver's ability to capture universal feelings in simple, poetic lines. Denver, in turn, respected Harris's gift for elevating any song she touched. When they performed together, their harmonies felt less like collaboration and more like communion, a blending of two souls who understood that music was a vessel for something greater than themselves. One of the hallmarks of Emmylou Harris's career has been her openness to collaboration. Throughout the years, she surrounded herself with brilliant musicians, from her legendary Hot Band, which included Rodney Crowell and Albert Lee, to powerhouse vocalists like Dolly Parton and Linda Ronstadt in their celebrated trio projects. These partnerships produced some of the most exquisite harmonies in music history. Her collaborative spirit extended beyond genres. Harris worked with Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Neil Young, and Bob Dylan, as well as younger artists like Buddy Miller, Gillian Welch, and Ryan Adams. Each project reflected her belief that music was a shared language, capable of building bridges across generations and styles. Her connection to John Denver was particularly special. Denver was not just a collaborator, but a kindred spirit. They performed together on several occasions, and their voices blended in a way that seemed destined. Denver's earnestness and Harris's ethereal clarity complemented one another, creating moments that felt timeless. Denver's music often carried themes of nature, simplicity, and love, and Harris found herself drawn to those same values. Their partnership, though not as extensively recorded as others, left a lasting impression on her. For Harris, Denver embodied the rare quality of being both a superstar and a genuinely humble man, a balance that inspired her to remain grounded even as her own fame grew. Through collaboration, Harris and Denver showed that music was never about ego. It was about connection, community, and the magic that happens when voices come together in harmony. As her career evolved, Emmylou Harris proved that she was never content with staying in one place musically. While her early work leaned heavily on country rock, she began exploring deeper, more experimental sounds in the 1990s. Albums like Wrecking Ball, 1995, produced by Daniel Lanois, introduced ethereal textures and alternative influences, expanding her audience to fans of indie and experimental music. Despite these shifts, one constant remained: emotional honesty. Harris's music has always explored themes of love, loss, longing, and redemption. Her voice became a vessel for human vulnerability, resonating with listeners who found their own experiences reflected in her songs. This artistic depth mirrored John Denver's own journey. Denver, too, was unafraid to infuse his music with spiritual undertones and themes of connection to nature and humanity. For Harris, speaking about Denver meant recognizing a fellow traveler, an artist who wasn't afraid to risk vulnerability for the sake of truth. Beyond her music, Emmylou Harris has always been admired for her humanitarian heart. She founded Bonaparte's Retreat, an animal rescue organization dedicated to saving dogs from euthanasia. She has supported causes ranging from disaster relief to landmine removal and veteran assistance. Her activism is never loud or self-serving. It reflects the same quiet strength and compassion that infuse her music. In this, she often drew inspiration from John Denver, who was himself an outspoken advocate for the environment and humanitarian causes. Denver's work with the Windstar Foundation and his efforts to raise awareness about global hunger left a deep impression on Harris. To her, Denver was more than a singer. He was a voice for change. Their shared values created a bond that transcended music. For Harris, honoring Denver meant not just remembering his songs, but also his unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. Over the decades, Emmylou Harris has received 14 Grammy Awards, been inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2008, and was honored with the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018. These accolades recognize her extraordinary contributions, yet even they cannot fully capture her influence. Similarly, John Denver's legacy includes Grammy wins, an Emmy Award, and induction into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. His songs remain anthems of simplicity and beauty, continuing to inspire, generations long after his untimely death in 1997. For Harris, awards were never the goal. Like Denver, she measured success not by trophies, but by the impact her music had on people's lives. Both artists understood that true recognition comes in the quiet moments, when a song comforts someone in grief, inspires someone in love, or brings strangers together in harmony. Emmylou Harris has experienced love, heartbreak, and the complexities of family life through 3 marriages. She often refers to herself as a really good ex-wife, a phrase that reflects her self-awareness and honesty. Each relationship brought lessons and shaped her personal journey. Her first marriage to Tom Slocum introduced her to the joys and challenges of balancing love with ambition. Later relationships carried their own imprints, but through it all, she remained devoted to her children and to her music. Harris admired John Denver, not just as an artist, but as a man who navigated his own personal struggles with courage. Denver's marriages and personal challenges were often public, yet he remained steadfast in his devotion to his children and to the ideals he believed in. For Harris, speaking of Denver is also an acknowledgement of the shared humanity behind fame, the vulnerabilities, mistakes, and the constant search for balance between personal life and public identity. As Emmylou Harris reflects at 78, her words about John Denver carry the weight of both memory and gratitude. She speaks not just of his songs, but of the man behind them, a dreamer who believed in love, nature, and the power of music to unite people. For her, Denver was more than a collaborator. He was a reminder of why they chose this path in the first place. Their legacies are intertwined in the shared values of honesty, compassion, and authenticity. Harris continues to inspire musicians and fans alike, just as Denver's songs continue to echo across time. Together, their contributions remind us that music is more than entertainment. It is a language of the soul. In finally speaking up about John Denver, Harris has given fans a gift, a glimpse into a friendship rooted in respect, artistry, and shared dreams. It is a reminder that even as time passes, the voices of those who sang from the heart never truly fade. Emmylou Harris has often described music as a form of prayer, a way of reaching for something higher. For her, songs were never just entertainment. They were vessels of truth, faith, and healing. This perspective brought her even closer to John Denver, who shared a similar spiritual connection to his craft. Denver's music often carried an almost sacred reverence for the earth and the human spirit, and Harris found in him a fellow seeker, someone who saw music not as a product, but as a pathway to transcendence. In interviews, Harris has reflected that singing alongside Denver felt like stepping into a sacred space, where two voices met in pure harmony. It wasn't about performance, it was about communion. Their shared spirituality made their collaborations resonate with listeners on a deeper level, leaving echoes that still linger decades later. Few artists can claim to inspire as many musicians, across genres as Emmylou Harris and John Denver. Harris's voice has become a blueprint for aspiring singer-songwriters who seek authenticity over commercialism. Younger artists often cite her as a guiding light, praising her ability to stay true to her art while constantly evolving. Similarly, John Denver's songs remain staples for new generations of musicians learning the craft of storytelling. His simplicity, sincerity, and melodic genius continue to influence those who believe music should touch the soul. Harris has acknowledged that Denver's influence is alive not only in country and folk, but also in indie and pop scenes, where honesty in songwriting is once again celebrated. By speaking openly about Denver, Harris bridges the gap between eras, reminding today's artists that their work is part of a larger tradition.